You ever wonder why some startups just seem to explode out of nowhere, while others, with these amazing ideas and super talented teams, just fizzle out? Well, today we're going to break down a really powerful method that's designed to flip that script. It's a way of building businesses that's all about building less so you can learn a whole lot more. So let's just start with a big one, the question that's at the heart of all this. The number one reason startups fail. It's not running out of money. It's not getting crushed by the competition. It's not even bad timing. So what is it? What's the single biggest killer of new ideas? And there it is. This is the single most common and honestly, the most heartbreaking mistake. You see teams spend months, maybe even years, pouring every ounce of their passion, their time, their money into creating the perfect product, and then they launch it to absolute silence. The lean startup was literally born to stop this from happening. Now, to really get why this new way is such a game changer, we have to take a quick look at the old way. This was a traditional, high-stakes way to build a company. And you know what? It was basically just a massive billion-dollar gamble. Okay, so the old playbook went something like this. You'd write this giant 100-page business plan, which was really just 100 pages of guesses. Then you'd go into stealth mode, hiding your brilliant idea from the world. And finally, you'd have the big, expensive launch party. The lean startup just throws that entire book out the window. Instead of a detailed plan, you test your assumptions. Instead of hiding, you get out there and seek feedback. And instead of one big launch, you constantly iterate and evolve. So yeah, the lean startup is the antidote to that wild gamble. And you shouldn't think of it as some rigid blueprint. It's much more like a scientific method that helps you find your way through the fog of uncertainty that every new business faces. At its heart, this whole methodology, which actually borrows a lot from lean manufacturing, is all about two things: speed and learning. It's a process designed from the ground up to figure out what your customers really want and to do it as fast and as cheap as you possibly can by running experiment after experiment. And this quote from Eric Ries, the guy who started this whole movement, really gets to the core of it. He's saying that being an entrepreneur isn't just about some stroke of genius or getting lucky. It's actually a process, a system. And the best part is, if it's a process, it can be learned. It can be taught. So how does this whole system actually work? Well, it's powered by this incredibly simple but really powerful feedback loop. This is the engine that drives everything in the lean startup. It's called build, measure, learn. First up is build. But wait, we are not building the final, amazing, polished product. No. We are building the absolute smallest thing we can, just a simple experiment to help us start learning. This little experiment has a name, the minimum viable product, or MVP. Okay, next, we measure. We take that MVP, we put it in front of real users, and we collect the cold, hard data. And this is so important. We track what they actually do. Are they clicking the button? Are they using that one key feature? We care about their actions, not what they say they would do in a survey. And finally, we learn. This is the moment of truth. We look at the data and we ask, was our guess right? Did our experiment work? This is what we call validated learning. And it forces us to make a really big decision. Do we persevere and keep going, or do we pivot and change our strategy? And as you can see, this whole thing is a continuous cycle. You build a little, you measure the results, you learn from it. And that learning immediately informs your next idea, which you then build. The main goal, the whole point, is to get through this loop as fast as you possibly can. All right, let's dive a little deeper into that build phase, because it all kicks off with one of the most famous and misunderstood concepts from the lean startup, the minimum viable product. Okay, so let's be super clear on this. Minimum viable does not mean buggy or low quality. It means focusing, laser-like, on the one core thing that you think provides value so you can test your biggest, riskiest assumption. The goal isn't to build a small product. The goal is to get the most learning with the least amount of work. So here's a perfect example. The founders of Dropbox had a huge problem. Building a file syncing service that actually worked, that was secure, that was a massive technical project. How on earth could they know if people even wanted this thing before they spent years building it? They couldn't just build a simple version of it. The tech was too hard. So their first MVP, it wasn't even a piece of software. Any ideas what they did instead? It was a video.
Seriously, a simple 3-minute screencast that just showed people what Dropbox would do. They faked it. They posted it for a bunch of tech early adopters, and overnight, their sign-up list for the beta went from 5,000 to 75,000 people. That video was all the proof they needed. It validated their core idea in a massive way.
And this is what's so cool. An MVP is a strategy, not a specific thing. Look at Zappos. The founder's MVP was just him going to local shoe stores, taking pictures, and posting them online. When someone bought a pair, he'd literally run to the store, buy the shoes, and mail them out. He proved people would buy shoes online without owning a single shoe. Or Groupon. It started as a basic blog that just emailed out PDF coupons. It was a test, not a tech platform.
Now, once your MVP is out there, you have to measure the right stuff. It's so easy to fall into the trap of vanity metrics, things like total downloads or how many page views you got. I mean, they look great on a slide, but they don't really tell you anything useful. You need actionable metrics, things like your conversion rate or how many customers stick around. These show you clear cause and effect, and they're the only things that can help you make that big pivot or persevere decision. And that brings us right back to that moment of truth in the learn phase. After you've looked at your actionable metrics, you have to make what is probably one of the hardest calls a founder can make. Do you stay the course? Or do you make a change? This pyramid here is the absolute best way to think about this. A pivot does not mean you failed. Look, your vision, that thing at the very top of the pyramid, that stays the same. A pivot is just a change in your strategy, your plan for how you're going to get to that vision. Think of it as a structured, deliberate course correction, not giving up on the destination. And pivots come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's a zoom-in pivot, where one little feature turns out to be so popular it becomes the entire product. Or a customer segment pivot, where you realize you built the right thing but for the totally wrong group of people. Or a customer need pivot, where you find a much bigger, more painful problem to solve for the customers you already have. Each pivot is basically a new, smarter hypothesis that kicks off a brand new build, measure, learn loop. You know, in the end, it really all comes back to this one idea. In the crazy, chaotic world of startups, the winner isn't always the one with the best idea or the most funding. The winner is the one who can learn the fastest. The speed at which you can go through that build, measure, learn loop, that is your real competitive advantage. So I want to leave you with this. Think about an idea you have, a business, a project, anything. What is the single biggest, riskiest assumption that your entire idea rests on? And more importantly, what's the smallest, fastest, cheapest experiment you could run, maybe even tomorrow, to find out if you're actually right? Because answering that question, that is the true first step to building something that people actually want.